Welcome back, everybody. We are on chapter 14, the book of Joshua, continuing. Up until now, we've seen the division of the land on the eastern banks between the 2.5 tribes of Israel. Now, the remaining 9.5 tribes will divide up the western side of the Jordan in the land of Canaan. The text tells us over here, and these are the cities which children of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest and Yeshua son of Nun and the heads of the tribes, the children of Israel, distributed for inheritance to them. Now what was done actually was that they took two boxes, they put all the names of the tribes in one box, and then in the other box they divided up the land into several sections. They put that in the other box. They would pull out one lottery and they would say, this is the portion of Judah, and they would take out the other section, and then they would read which portion of the land fell into the tribe of Judah. And that's what they would do with all the remaining 9.5 tribes. As we remember, Manasseh, which divided into half the tribe was on the eastern side, and half the tribe was on the western side. The text tells us over here, the children of Joseph were then counted as two tribes. They were Ephraim and Manasseh. When we count the tribes of Israel, sometimes Levi was included in the counting. In this particular case, they were excluded from the counting because they had no portion in the land of Eretz Yisrael, as the verse goes on to tell us over here. But instead of them, Manasseh and Ephraim were counted. Instead of Joseph, they counted for two tribes over there. But they gave no part to the Levites in the land, save the cities to dwell in. So the Levites had actually no inheritance, but they did have 42 cities which were given over to them throughout the entire country. And also, besides those 42 cities, the 6 refuge cities, the cities of refuge, where people would run to if there was a murder case and they would go to run off to a safe haven over there. Those cities were also controlled by the Levites. So in reality, they received 48 cities. Now, besides the cities over here, the text tells us that they had the open spaces about them for their cattle and for their flocks. The Talmud tells us about this, that they were given outside of their city dwelling, they were given 1,000 cubits of space, which would be a reference for parks or any other type of activities that was surrounding their entire cities. And besides that, there was another extension of another 1,000 cubits. The Rambam actually disagrees and says there's actually 2,000 cubits, and that was used for the grazing of their animals. So they had plenty of space and plenty of opportunity to see green and to have parks and everything else that went along with that. As the Lord has commanded Moshe, so the children of Israel did, and they divided up the land. Then the children of Judah came to Yeshua in Gilgal. Remember, Gilgal is the main headquarters of the Jewish people for the first 14 years, the years of the war and the years of dividing up dividing up the country. As we know, the tabernacle was placed in Gilgal. This was the main headquarters. From here, the armies went out to war and to conquer the land of Israel. So the tribe of Judah came up, and Caleb, the son of Yefuneh, the Kenizi, came up and said, you know the things that the Lord spoke to Moses, the man of God, concerning me and concerning you in Kadesh Barnea. Now, what is he referring to over here, Caleb? And that's interesting that the entire tribe over here of Judah came to back him up, and they come in. You can just imagine the scene before you. Yeshua is sitting is in his office, and they're sitting around dividing up the land. There's a knock at the door. It's Caleb. We're all familiar with Caleb. Caleb was one of the 12 spies that was sent out by Moshe to see the land and to see how to inherit and how to conquer the land. And of course, as we know the story, 10 of the spies came back with a horrible report and spoke poorly against the land and said that the Jewish people just can't face up to the task and we should stay in the desert. And Yeshua and Caleb were the only 2 spies who came out with a favorable report saying, yes, we can. Yes, we can. So we see over here that Caleb now knocks at the door after the land is now resting from war, and now is the time to divide up the countryside. Caleb comes and takes his claim, because there in the text Moshe promises him as a reward for Caleb for having faith in the Kadosh Baruch Hu, he was given Hebron and its surrounding areas. Now he comes to Yoshua with this request over here, and he says to him, you know the thing that the Lord spoke to Moshe, the man of God, concerning me. I was 40 years old when Moshe, the servant of the Lord, sent me out to Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought back word as it was in my heart. Now it's interesting to see over here, the commentaries bring out concerning me and concerning you, because he's speaking to Yoshua, which were the only two survivors of that entire generation. So it comes out something that's very, very interesting, that all of the miracles of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of the Exodus from Egypt, which took place in order to release the Jewish people from bondage. As we know, there were 600,000 males, a nation of some 2 to 3 million. Out of all of those males, all 600,000 were all killed off during the 40 years that the Jewish people were in the desert. The only two exceptions to the case, the only people who made it into the land of Eretz Yisrael, was Yoshua and Caleb. So it shows that God did all of these miracles, so to speak. The plagues at Egypt, the destruction of Egypt, the 40 years in the desert, the giving of the Torah, just for the sake of Yoshua and Caleb. Those two rose to the occasion and entered into the land of Eretz Yisrael. Fascinating. Fascinating, I say, at least. Caleb goes on to explain to Yoshua that he was 40 years old. So he's part of the age group that was condemned to die. But as we say, he lived because of his great faith in the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And he did not say what was in his heart. Rashi explains to us, not as was in his mouth. The spies were of the council that Caleb was with them, but he was afraid to say what he wanted to say. So Caleb, all the time, knew that he wanted to come and say a favorable report that the Jewish people can go up and conquer the land of Eretz Yisrael. But he was afraid. He was afraid of the spies, the other spies. They had the majority opinion. So he kept quiet. When they returned to the desert to report, all the other spies thought that Caleb was also with them. I mean, they knew Yoshua was this good boy with the payas, and then he's Moshe Rabbeinu's student, so he always, of course, would have the good report and not be in their evil counsel. But they thought that Caleb was with them, and Caleb was silent. He didn't say anything at all during the 40 days that they came out to spy the land. So when they came back to give the report before Moshe and the Jewish people, everybody thought that Caleb was with them. So Caleb gets up to speak, and everyone says, shh, because now he's going to say something great. He's going to confirm what we've been saying over there. So Caleb then comes up and says, no, we could go up and we could conquer, and if we have faith in the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the land will be given over to us. Everyone was shocked that Caleb, who they thought was with them, because he was silent the entire tribe, now spoke up in favor of conquering the land of Eretz Yisrael. That's why he was able to do that. The text comes to tell us that he was 40 years old at this particular point. And my brothers went up with me and made the heart of the people melt. But I fulfilled the will of the Lord my God. Right? And this is what he says, in my heart I knew that Moshe was right. But I wasn't with the other spies. And Moshe swore on that day, saying, surely the land upon your foot has trodden upon shall be your inheritance, and your children's forever, because you have fulfilled the will of God. Now, why is he given over to Hebron? Because the text tells us that when they came up, the spies, they started from the south, and they knew that there was these 4 giants that lived in Hebron. So all the other spies were afraid to enter into Hebron, except for Caleb. That's why the text says over here, the Bible tells us, they went up in the south, and he came to Hebron. What does it say he came to Hebron? Caleb alone came to Hebron. All the other spies were afraid. They didn't want to go near Hebron. Oh my gosh, they have the giants there. I'm so scared. Oh my gosh. But not Caleb. Caleb came into Hebron. He came to the Me'arat Machpelah, the place that was purchased by Avraham Avinu. There he prayed for deliverance from our forefathers and from Kadosh Baruch Hu, and his prayers were heard. Oh yes. The other spies feared the giants that dwelt there, but not Caleb. And now behold, the Lord has kept me alive. He has spoken as he has spoken these 45 years from the time the Lord has spoke his word to Moshe while Israel was walking in the wilderness. And now behold, this day I am 85 years old. So now a period of some 45 years have passed. The remaining 38 years, as Rashi tells us over here, I will quote from Rashi. We learn that the conquest of the land took 7 years. For in the second year, Moshe sent out the spies. There remained 38 years during which the Israelites walked through the wilderness, and 7 in which to conquer the land, making a total of 45. So from the verse over here by Caleb telling us how old he was when Moshe sent him out and how old he is today, we are able to understand that the war of conquest of the land of Eretz Yisrael took 7 years. So that would make that Caleb now is 85 years old. Caleb goes on to talk to Yoshua, and he says to him, I am still as strong this day as I was on the day that Moshe sent me out. My strength then, even so is my strength now. Meaning to say he's 85, but he's as strong as he was when he was 40 years old. For war, for both going out and coming in. And now give me the mountain of which the Lord spoke on that day, for you heard on that day how the Anakim, the giants, were there, and the cities were big and fortified. And it may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall drive them out as the Lord has spoken. And Yoshua blessed them. He blessed them. Now it's interesting, as I mentioned before, that the entire tribe of Judah came to knock at the door with Caleb. They didn't let Caleb go himself. Maybe they were afraid that Yoshua might want to backtrack on this promise that was given over to him. Maybe for some other reason they thought that they needed a backbone for Caleb to come. And so the entire tribe came with Caleb to knock on the door in front of Yoshua. And of course, Yoshua at this point is not going to backtrack at all, but he actually blesses Caleb and he gives him Hebron to Caleb ben Yefuneh as an inheritance. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Yefuneh, the Kenizi, until this day, because he fulfilled the will of the Lord God of Israel. And the name of Hebron before was Kiryat Arba, the city. Arba was the greatest man amongst the Anakim, and the land had rested from war. Now, we see a couple of things that are interesting over here. Now, it seems that during the southern campaign, Hebron was conquered already, because it's listed in the 31 kings that were conquered, that we read previously. So if that's the case, what exactly is Caleb coming to ask for? But it seems, Rashi brings out over here, that we are talking about the villages surrounding Hebron. That's what Caleb wants, because Hebron itself is a city of refuge. A city of refuge cannot belong to a particular person or to a particular tribe. It has to be open for everybody. So it's obviously talking about the villages and the suburbs of Hebron itself. Another thing that we see about this is, of course, the Anakim, which was called Kiryat Arba before, 4 giants that were living there. Now, Chazal tells us that this either relates to actually a father and 3 sons who were all giants and everybody was afraid of them during this period of time, or it refers to Kiryat Arba, could also refer to the 4 couples that lived and were buried in Hebron, from Adam and Chava, right? Our rabbis tell us that in the Ma'at HaMachpelah, in Hebron is buried not only Avraham and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov and Leah, but also Adam and Chava, the first man and the first woman, are also buried there. So those are the 4 couples, and that's why it's called Kiryat Arba. And as we recall from the book of Genesis, this was purchased by Avraham Avinu from the Chutim, and it became an inheritance for his descendants for all time. Now, a couple of things that is interesting, which we have basically concluded chapter 14, but before we move on over here, Rav Kahana in Perush HaMaccabee, his great book over here, Perush HaMaccabee, I'm showing it for everybody at home to see, in the chapter of Shmuel, the book of Shmuel, it's divided into 4 separate books over here, he asks the following question: Lama yatzorech Kalev lomar Yoshua Adoneni Hayom Chazak? Why did Caleb have to tell in his discussion with Yoshua over here, I am still strong? Why did he have to say that? And more. V'ki bemed begil 85. Could it be that at the age of 85, Caleb was still as strong as he was at the age of 40? That doesn't seem to be possible in human terms. And why did Yoshua have to bless him? Another question Rav Kanasu asked, and why does it say Ha'aretz K'tam Milchama? At the end of the chapter over here is a war. It says that the land rested from wars, which was already stated to us in chapter 11. Why does it have to go back and tell us that again? So we have over here a few questions in order to understand this dialogue between Yoshua and Kalev. Exactly what was going on over here, because it seems that at the age of 85, even if Kalev was fit and took vitamins and he still worked out, he still could not have been as strong as he was at the age of 40. So Rav Kana answers this by telling us, Nere shekalev chashash meYoshua she'eskim mechevron megilo. Kalev was worried, and this could be the reason why he brought the entire tribe of Judah with him. Aval hu yifached latet lo et ha'ir biglas shanakim hayu sham. And maybe he would be afraid because the giants lived there, and this would be like, how could Kalev go and conquer these people? These people are giants over here. No one could get near this city. Maybe we should just, the inheritance for Kalev, we'll leave it for another generation. Now's not the proper time. Kalev kafa his daken. Kalev was already old. Valzeba Kalev omer שההבדל היחיד שהיה בינו לבין המרגלים היה בכוח הביטחון שלו בקדוש ברוך הוא. Kalev goes on to explain to us the whole story of the spies, that he was one of the spies sent out and he followed God and he wasn't like the other spies. Why does he go through this entire story? In order to show us that Kalev was the man of faith. He had faith in the Kadosh Baruch Hu, as opposed to the other spies. Their sin lied not in fact that they told lies, that they were giants, but the fact was that they could not enter the land because they thought that we would not be able to overcome these strong nations that are living over here. They were fearful. They thought that God would not have enough strength in order to enter the land of Eretz Yisrael. They were lacking faith in God tremendously. So of course they paid the punishment, and the entire generation paid a horrible punishment and was wiped out. Kalev was different. Kalev was cut from a different type of grain. That's the people we are over here. Kalev was a man of faith, and he knew that if Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to bring us into the land of Eretz Yisrael, we could do that. So when he says over here that my strength has not diminished from the time that I was 40, he doesn't talk about his physical strength, because obviously you're not the same at the age of 85 as you were at the age of 40. But he's talking about his emunah, his faith in the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That is still great, Rav Kana tells us over here. Tremendous insight that the Rav had over here. V'kein ani nisha bekoach habitachon b'Hashem. I still stand with my faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sheyazor li letgaber al anakim. He will help me conquer these giants that are over here. Sheyatzeh lemilchama v'yachoz. That's why it says over here that he still had his tremendous faith, and in spite of the fact that these are the giants that are living in Hebron, Kalev is the man to take care of business, even at this age that he has. So God will also help me now. It was for this tremendous faith that Kalev had in God that Yoshua blessed him. The Aretz, the land was quiet from war, because of the tremendous faith that Kalev had. Mishum sharak bitachon b'Hashem. Only people who have faith in the Kadosh Baruch Hu, mevi nitzachon, they bring the great victory to the Jewish people, and they bring the peace that we so request and want to dwell in. So the same comes out over here. A very interesting thing over here that we learn from this story over here from Kalev. Sometimes it seems the reality is the exact opposite. Because we're fearful of the nations, we run after peace and we try to make agreements with them. And that really never works out. Because when you're lacking faith, there can never be victory. There can never be peace. Only people like Kalev, who have tremendous faith, who could go and conquer Hebron from these giants over here. These are people immense. They are giants themselves in immense faith that they have in Kadosh Baruch Hu. That God is Hakol Yachol. God is the mover of history. God could do anything, and so he certainly could destroy these giants before Kalev. And because of that, that's what only brings the true peace to the Jewish people. Meaning, once we have this bitachon in Hashem, once we have faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we do what must be done, then we will bring peace in our time. That is the only way of bringing peace. Ram Levi Chazan coming to you from Yerushalayim. Thanks for being with us. Chapter 14 of the book of Yeshua. We will see you next time.